what I want to do tonight is I want to talk a little bit about the process and give you a sense of sort of what you can look forward to in the admission process. I want to talk about a few dates and deadlines, some things to keep in mind. The thing that I always like about talking at parent evenings is that whenever I say that I'm going to talk about dates and deadlines, someone starts taking, there's always parents with pens somewhere. There's like, someone's got something in a purse or in a jacket or something, and like parents are taking notes. Students are always just standing there listening and just sort of looking at me, but there's always a parent taking notes, and I like that. Makes me feel good. So the first dates and deadlines that I just want to give you a sense of, the very first date that is really of concern is the application deadline. So the application deadline for all students who are in Ontario high schools, which I'm assuming is probably every single person in this room, is January 12th, 2011. If you go to a high school in Ottawa, most likely your guidance counselor or guidance office has been really on you to get your application in. In a lot of schools, they ask that the applications are done before Christmas. So probably a lot of you have already applied. Those of you who are thinking of waiting until the new year to apply, that's fine, just as long as you have it in before the January 12th date. The next date that I just want to highlight before I start talking about the application process is June 2nd. So June 2nd is the earliest date by which we can compel anyone, an Ontario high school student, to respond to an offer of admission. So let's say you were to get an offer of admission on February 14th. Nice little Valentine from us. Then you would have until June 2nd to respond to that offer. June 9th is the other date that I want to throw out there for you. June 9th is the date by which you need to respond to your offer of residence. So most students who get an offer, especially at this early stage, all students who get an offer to first year before May 19th, 2011, are going to get a guaranteed offer of residence with their offer of admission. And there's a deadline to respond to that so that you can secure your spot in residence, and that deadline is June 9th. Their deadline is a little bit more specific than the other deadlines that I mentioned, because their deadline is June 9th at 4:30 p.m. and they're serious, like not 4:31. It's like 4:30. So those are the three that you want to keep in mind, okay? So January 12th, June 2nd, and June 9th, those are your three sort of main high points. So the other dates that you want to keep track of, I'm not going to list them, but if you are someone who is applying for a program that requires supplementary information, so that's anything that requires a portfolio, an audition, another application, like if you're applying to social work, there's a supplementary application form. If you're someone who's applying to any of those programs, there are a whole host of dates that are associated with those, with all of those pieces, dates by which you have to hand your portfolio in, dates by which you have to complete your music audition, etc. It's very, very important, if you're one of those students, that you know what's expected of you in regard to auditions or supplementary information, and that you adhere to the deadlines. So when you apply to any of those programs, what we'll do is when we acknowledge your application and we send you the first correspondence, we send you an information package, and in there is a sheet that corresponds to any of the programs that have supplementary information that explain clearly what you need to do for the information, what you need to do for your portfolio, and what the dates and deadlines are associated with those. So make sure you pay close attention to those extra dates and deadlines. So in general, the offer process. A lot of people think the offer process is scary and that it's like a mystery. And it's really not. It's very, very straightforward, especially if you are a student who's in an Ontario high school. So the way it works for students in Ontario high schools is we get grades for you 4 times per year, okay? So when you apply, let's say you had applied just before you arrived here. If you did that, then the first series of grades that we see for you is everything that you've done in grade 11, and if you've taken any grade 12 courses. So that's the first thing we see for you. The second time we see grades for you is in February, and at that point what we see is we see everything you did in grade 11, plus we see any first term grade 12 results, anything that you did during this session that you're in right now. After that, we get grades in April, May, depending on your school board, and those are your midterm and interim grades. And then the last time we get grades for you is when we get your final grades. So that's really what happens, is we get distributions of grades for you at each of those points. And what we try to do is at each of those stages, we look at your average and compare them to where our averages are at that moment, and we try to make you an offer of admission. So at the earliest possible moment that we can make you an offer of admission, we do. And so what that's called is it's called rolling offers of admission, and that's what we do, is every time we get new grades for you, we look at your profile and we see if we can make you an offer of admission. So it's very straightforward. All we're doing usually is waiting for your average to be high enough, or for us to have grades for the prerequisite courses that are required for your program. So sometimes if you don't have an early offer of admission, it might be because we don't have enough grades for you. It might be because we don't have enough of the prerequisite courses that we need for the program that you applied to. Or it could be because your average at that very moment isn't high enough for the standard that we have at that point in time. Okay? So that's how offers are made. That's what we do. But a couple of notes about when you'll get offers of admission. Sometimes what happens is we'll start sending out early offers of admission, and in schools, students will start comparing. Someone will come into school and they'll say, I got an offer from Carleton. It's awesome. And so inevitably what happens is whoever is hearing that, if they don't have an offer, they're just like the cartoon bunny, you know, the sweat just is like beading on, they're like freaking out. And inside, they're like, oh yeah, that's cool. But inside, they're like, oh my God, I don't have an offer of admission. Where's my offer of admission? Why don't I have one? And the reason why could be a whole host of factors. So it could be that, like I said, you're missing a prerequisite grade for the program that you applied to. So maybe your friend applied to the Bachelor of Arts, and that's why they have an offer of admission early, because there are very few prerequisites for arts. Maybe you applied for engineering. There are a lot more prerequisites, so maybe that's why you don't have your offer yet. Or one of the more likely scenarios is perhaps you applied for a program that had supplementary information. I talked about the application deadlines for programs that have supplementary information. Any of you in this room who are thinking of applying for a program like architecture or music or industrial design, you'll never get an early offer of admission. And the reason why is because those applications, those portfolios all need to be sorted through and assessed and evaluated by a committee. And so if the application deadline for the architecture portfolios is April 1st, all of those need to be collected, they all need to be evaluated by a committee, and then decisions are made about whether or not a student's going to get an offer of admission to that program. And so it could be that the reason why your offer isn't here is because we haven't assessed your portfolio yet. So those are all things to keep in mind, all reasons not to panic during the cycle, okay? The other thing to know is when you're making your choices now, when you're applying to Carleton, is you'll be asked to make your choices of various programs at Carleton. So let's say you're interested in, I don't know, commerce and Bachelor of Arts. The important thing is when you're selecting your program that you put whichever choice is your first choice first. And I know that seems really basic, but sometimes what happens is when people are filling in the application form, they just kind of put stuff down and they don't really pay attention to the order that they put it in. But remember, if you've chosen 2 programs at Carleton and we can give you your offer to your first choice, we've done what we think you wanted us to do. So if in fact your first choice is the program that you listed second, you'll never get an offer to that choice. We'll tell you whether you're eligible or not, but we only make you an offer to your first choice program. And then if you look at your second choice and you say, hey, I'm actually eligible for my second choice, I would like to make that my first choice, you can change it, but you can only change it for as long as there's room in the program. And so what we ask is that when you're making your choices at the very beginning, right now, is to make your choices carefully and make sure that you rank them according to your real preference, okay? This is especially important if you're applying to a limited enrollment program. So if you're someone who is thinking that they want to apply to journalism or aerospace engineering or the Bachelor of International Business, it would be really important to put those programs first before a program that has more enrollment capacity, like the Bachelor of Arts or the Bachelor of Science or something like that. And the reason why is because those programs tend to fill very quickly. And so we want to make sure that if that really is your first choice, that you get an offer to it and that there's no delay and you don't risk the chance of us closing the program because it's full before you've had the opportunity to have an offer of admission. Okay? So those are just some things to keep in mind. What I think the biggest thing to remember is it's all quite a lot of information right now. In general, when students have applied, if you've already applied, you've probably only narrowed down your choices to 3 or 5 programs or universities, and there's still a lot of deciding to do. And what happens is there's a lot of information that's different from university to university. Different dates, different deadlines, different scholarship programs, different residence policies. There's a lot to keep track of. But I think the most important thing to remember is that, as Stenley said, we're here for you tonight to answer your questions. Please don't leave as long as you have questions. But more importantly than tonight, the staff here, the faculty here, all of us in recruitment and admissions, we're here to answer your questions throughout the admission cycle. So if something's confusing, if something's difficult, if you need help with something, if you think something has gone awry, please call us. Let us know, and we'll coach you through it, we'll help you through the process, and we'll do our best to make sure that we can get you to the point that you need to be at.